record because on my end everything looks good. Hopefully to the
Okay.
YouTube crowd everything looks good. To Mark, I apparently look super digital psychedelic.
You're closing in on normal. You're looking a little more normal. I
I'm
don't know
closing in
what's
on normal. Okay.
I
Closing on
don't
normal.
know.
So I was
I am
peaking about 10 minutes ago. Okay, that's cool.
I'm so confused. Anyway,
This is
you'll
I am cursed like every time I have a movie where I've done a podcast on it before because I've done this one a few years ago, right? So I'm like
Yeah.
looking at my old I have to go to my old computer to look at old notes. I'm like I've done this like three times recently where I'll go and okay, I must have the summary there. And it's like, oh crap, that's one I didn't do the summary for. So I have to
uh,
had to do it again. That's fine. They're shorter here. They're not mission log summaries.
Yeah, sure. Oh boy. Man, oh man. That albatross. I'm waiting until AI gets good enough that I can just say, do the recap, but make it sound like me, you know?
Yeah. No, I've gotten a few times like that happened here where I was like I'm thinking of what I'm going to write and I go to, and the first line of wiki is exactly what I was thinking. Oh, I have to change it or I'm just going to start copying wiki,
Yeah,
you know?
right. Right, right. Yeah.
well, we can talk about this, but I do feel like this is a film with five, maybe six acts.
Ooh. Okay, we can get into that.
Wow.
I mean
Yeah.
Shakespeare
So,
is five acts, right?
yeah, I suppose so.
Hmm.
Um, okay,
But
so I haven't
okay.
thought about how I want to start this.
You can
Um,
start it the same, and it's the podcast has the same. Yeah, John, if you're curious, this is podcast 1999. We're doing this for, but we're just doing
yeah,
apes. I think I sent you the artwork where I've just plastered, Cornelius or Caesar, whoever you want to call him, over the eagle. Well, actually, Brian did that, but
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
um, yeah, and also we did the Omen before this, which will go up before this. Just to let you know, I've got a couple of in jokes about that. So if you're wondering
okay.
why I keep referencing
Gotcha.
the devil,
Hmm.
that's
Have you
why.
seen The Omen? That was my first viewing of The Omen, actually.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw it ages ago. It's been a while. Yeah.
But it has like 10 Space 1999 guest stars, and it's Halloween, so we're like,
Oh my
why
God.
not?
Of course, you have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And okay, so yeah, Mark, just do the
Great.
same intro, and you just we're going ape now. I think I have a question. I can run it by you guys first for the end if you want it, but or I could just spring it
Is it
on
going
you.
to turn out that we're on Earth the whole time? Is that the end?
We are on Earth the whole time, I think.
Oh
I'm
my
on the other side of
God.
Earth, but yeah.
Were you going to run it by us, or were you...
Yeah,
Oh, do you want it?
yeah, run it
Oh,
by us first. Yeah.
so yeah, because we got the tripometer on time enough. It was existential dread or sci-fi fun. I thought we'd just talk about how bananas it is, and you could give it zero
Oh,
to ten
yeah.
bananas.
No, remember I said it
Yes.
should be
I
seven
love it.
bananas, one to seven bananas, because
Oh, okay, it's seven
that's a
bananas
weird
then.
because that's a weird number. That's not
Okay,
a
there.
round
It's
number.
good I asked then. It'll be seven
I love it.
bananas. Got it.
I forgot we had
And
that
isn't
conversation.
that the number of rays on the Statue of Liberty's crown,
Oh,
Oh,
I should
maybe.
double check. That's a good
indicating the
point.
seven seas? I believe. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
That sounds
Uh-huh.
like the stuff we do for the
That
Occult
feels
Disney
like
podcast.
lost memories being unlocked.
I gotta go count now. There
Well,
she is.
how many rays are on the
One, two, three,
statue?
four, five,
Uh,
seven. Seven. It's seven.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I
neat.
think symbolically it's the seven seas or the seven continents. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
That's a dude, probably. The Statue of
Uh,
Liberty.
yeah, probably.
No, Mithras. I think the idea is it's actually Mithras. So the Statue of Liberty is just a very effeminate looking dude.
Hmm. Interesting.
When did we just decide it was Lady Liberty without consulting any French people? Is that what happened?
Maybe. Well,
Right.
there's a language gap, language barrier.
Yeah, it just didn't make it across the ocean, that little tidbit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't know the difference between le or la. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that also comes into play in this.
That's a game that Luke's
Suppose.
girlfriend plays with him. She'll just spit out words and be like, in Spanish, is it male or female? They were
Mm.
playing that in the line for Journey to the Center of the Earth a few months ago.
Oh
Wow.
man. So glad we live in a country where we don't have to gender our words. It's just we have to gender the shit out of everything else.
Well, the whole
Yeah.
pronoun thing in America and Japan is just san. It doesn't matter who you are. You are,
Hmm.
John san, Mark san. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
Or
where
kun.
you want to be. It's just always san. Kun's a boy. Okay. There's a
That's
little
pretty
bit as a
cool.
boy, but really young boys are actually still called Chan, like a girl,
Ah,
like
Yeah,
a
Shin-chan.
interesting.
like a two, yeah, like Crayon Shinchan, right? So a young boy might still get the female version attached.
Huh.
So my nephew is the same age as my daughter, so Utaro-chan, Yu-chan is like, when do I start changing it to Utaro-kun, right? Yeah, so it was like not clear when that change took place.
Listen to everybody else. That's what I would be
Uh,
doing in
That's
Japan for
what I
sure.
was doing. Okay, Mark, why don't you go ahead and intro and we will do this thing. Yeah, John, it is the same format, but it is a different format that we don't even know yet. So, just say whatever you feel
Great.
like.
All right.
We're kind
Like,
of breaking
yeah,
some ground here.
unbelievable, unprecedented trivia dump for me. For better or worse, because I was like, this is too important. I can't leave things out.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
for real.
maybe like for real might be the most important film that I ever have to write trivia about. Um, since okay. Welcome to Podcast 1999, the podcast about Planet of the Apes.
That's right. So yes, we've moved on from Space 1999. The conceit here is if it's 70s sci-fi, it kind of feels like they're looking at 1999 all the time, right? Or wrong.
Yep,
You can call me wrong if you want. Uh, this
you're
is Matt.
wrong.
Oh, this is Matt here. Who are
Just
you?
kidding. This is Mark.
Uh,
You're not wrong.
Coming in again. You've been here before. Permission log is John Champion, but it's a different
Ev-
franchise now. And
yeah, everything's upside down, just like this crazy planet full of apes. I'm so excited to be here. One of my all-time favorite movies, and probably within the last 3 years ish, 2 3 years, got to see this projected on the big screen at the Academy Museum, introduced by none other than Dr. Zaius.
Nice.
Yeah. And I do mean Dana Gould as Maurice Evans as Dr. Seuss.
All
no,
right.
no, you
So,
told me that once before, and I mentioned it. Someone's like, "Hasn't Dr. Sayers been dead for a really long time?"
well, I like the idea that Dana, but it kind of depends on what meta version of this you're catching as either just that Dr. Zaius is an extant being and Dr. Zaius is Dr. Zaius, and they just happen to capture him in this movie. Other times when he's doing his act, it seems like it is, I think the origin of it was Dana Gould as Maurice Evans, as Hal Holbrook, as Mark Twain in Mark Twain Tonight. So it was a whole like multi-layered thing, and he nailed it. He killed it. So
Honestly, in
yeah,
2024, you could just say Dana Gould introduced him, and people are like, "Oh, that's great."
yeah, right. But I love that Dr. Z has his own life now.
No, I
It's
like the
pretty great.
layers of meta. It's fun to add on to that, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Um,
that's the time we live in. It is the reference age, and the more references you can do at the same time, the better. I say, is
Yep.
yeah, go as deep as you can. It's like,
this
how are we not going to sing the song when we've or the various songs from the musical that was a joke on a TV show from the 90s?
Yep, that's my background, of course. I am curious. This has to be among my most rewatched movies because I taped it off TBS Channel 17 Superstation in Atlanta somewhere in the late 80s. This and the
Nice.
second one beneath, and proceeded to watch them probably once a week for 5 years. So,
Yeah.
I've seen these
Good
an
call.
awful lot.
Good call.
For me, this is one of those movies where I don't remember the first time I saw it. Feels like I've always seen this movie. It's like I've seen it many, many times on TV. I feel like I always knew the twist, which is kind of a bummer. I wish I did have recollection of finding out, and I'm sure I found out about the twist like before watching the film when I was a kid
As
somehow.
a dumb kid, I think the very first time I actually didn't know the twist. I'm like one of the only people since 1968 to have watched this without maybe. I mean, I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, right? Trying to get my head
Oh,
where I'm getting the Statue of Liberty raised behind me as well.
well, you're lucky because that
Nice.
every once in a while, because of the like how long Terminator 2 is endured, every once in a while I hear about somebody who's very young and sees it for the first time, and they're like, it blew my mind that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a good Terminator. Where those of us who were around when that came out, there was a marketing blitz that spoiled it entirely. And James Cameron, it was his idea even.
Yeah, you saw that
Mm.
opening night,
Yeah,
and and I mean I did too, but yeah, you already knew that. So
you
I mean,
knew.
at
Yes.
12 years, it was like cool. New Guns N' Roses song was cool, but that's what Planet of the Apes does not have. It does not have a cool Guns N' Roses song. It has one of Jerry Goldsmith's best scores instead. So
Yeah.
we'll take that as a consolation prize.
I'll take that over the Guns N' Roses score. I'm sorry.
Uh, John, I am interested how many viewings of this you've had other than the Gould is Whitmore Zayas one.
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of a similar situation. I know that I've seen it on the big screen a few times. I'm going to say that the Alabama theater where I grew up, they would do classic films, and then in Chicago, where I lived for a while, we had a few good years of science fiction and fantasy like marathons at the Music Box Theater. So definitely seen it on the big screen a number of times, but this is one of those VHS tapes that I rented over and over again. Like back in the day, even before Blockbuster, and there was a mom and pop video store near like kind of the like the strip where we just got everything done. It's like you get a haircut, you go here, get gas, get an oil change, go here, and there's the mom and pop video store. So it was always a stop. And I would rent Planet of the Apes. I would rent Tommy, the Ken Russell 1974
Yeah.
film, and
Weird movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
and probably whatever Star Trek or Star Wars thing happened to be available on the shelf. So like this is in regular rotation. Cannot tell you the number of times that I've seen it. But it's a masterpiece. And I remember in high school even reading the book, thinking like the Pierre Boulle book, thinking, oh, this will be easy. I've seen the movie a million times. I'm just going to get the book and blow it off and write a book report about the movie, right? But then it's one of the rare times I found myself getting sucked into the book. And like, no, 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 I really need to finish this because I love the movie so much, and now I just feel like I need to know the source material too. It's been a lot longer since I've read the book, but seen the movie multiple times. Cannot even tell you the first time.
Whereas the book, I would say the third movie is probably a better adaptation of the actual book.
Oh,
Just you
interesting.
just
Yeah.
flip the species, right? Because in the book, it's a
Yeah.
couple of humans end up on the technologically advanced monkey planet,
Right.
whereas
Right.
the
Right.
third movie, it's the two apes just end up, it's a flip flop, saves money. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but yes, I haven't seen the third movie yet. I'm not a big sequel watcher, as I've said on multiple podcasts. In fact, I didn't see the second movie until Matt showed it to me when we were in college, and that blew my
Hmm.
mind. I was not, if I'd known what that movie was, I would have watched it
Well,
way
wait for the
earlier.
fourth one, man.
I'm
Or the fifth
excited.
one. I mean, the fifth one didn't
I
have a budget. That was the problem there, but
But I gotta say though, I mean, as it's, I have this weird thought about it. Like, I don't want to get too far ahead because I don't know how much of the apes you're going to be covering. I assume all of it, but I wish that this original Apes franchise had existed at a time when there was at least a little more thought behind continuity and consistency and not like reinventing the wheel each time you go make a sequel, because those original movies are wildly inconsistent, and some of them have, I'm talking about the sequels, have flashes of brilliance, and then others you just go like, okay, they don't even care at a certain point about connecting these movies at all. And then you have the TV series and you have the animated series, which is great in its own right. But they all occupy these strange places where they feel familiar, but they're not connected in a really deep way. And I wish that they were. But I will take these any day of the week over any of the remakes that have happened between the Tim Burton and now the newer movies, which I think are
Hmm.
good. I think they're fine, but I love the charm and kind of the analog world that these exist in. So, none of them are perfect, but I think maybe this first movie is as close to perfect as we're gonna get.
yeah, this is not my favorite one, but it is the
Mm,
best one. But one
mm,
counterpoint,
mhm.
just to we're stuck with MCU and Star Wars stuff. Maybe not so much Star Wars, but definitely
Yeah.
MCU, where it's like no movies get to end. It has to set up the next 8 movies.
Yeah,
And what I love
yeah,
about the
yeah.
Apes movies is every 8 movie gives you a definitive ending that you could not have a sequel made from.
Right,
Yet we keep
right,
making sequels. So that's why they have to reinvent the wheel every time. They definitively ended the movie every time. But then they make a
right.
sequel. And I love that. That's just such
Yeah, it's
I
maverick
mean,
so
filmmaking.
forgive me
bonkers.
if
Yeah.
forgive me if I'm wrong, but I feel like before the maybe Star Wars and The Godfather that really directors weren't going to make sequels to their own films. The sequels were always passed off to somebody else
There
in
might
the
be some
past.
stuff like The Thin
Like
Man might have
Universal,
had the same director some of the time.
yeah.
Although I'm saying that not knowing if that's the case,
And,
actually.
and I'm saying that that doesn't necessarily result in a lesser film. There's like I think Bride of Frankenstein is a great movie, and I think that's a different director than Frankenstein. Love both those movies. That's of course way earlier, but
Hmm.
yeah, that just feels like a lot of '80s schlock that I love was like just like Friday the 13th was always like, let's give this completely different guy a shot at Friday the 13th, and Jason is a different guy every time.
Yeah.
Wes Craven
But yeah, I
jettisoning
guess
so
that is a
famously
charm
immediately.
of the inconsistency and weird, non,
Hmm.
um, you know, I've lost the word, but
Hmm.
just you take the Star Trek movies, love the Star Trek movies, but you got, Monster Maroons for most of them. The bridge looks pretty much the same. You're getting a consistency in those, even with the different directors,
Yeah.
whereas two Ape movies, man, it's like what Roddy McDowell's in 4 out of 5 of them. That kind of blows my mind, that they
Well,
actually
and see,
managed the
those are
same
that's
actor.
the yeah, that's the kind of thing that is very weird because again, like it's a little unfair to look at this franchise that comes from a time that studios were not creating franchises. Like that was not the point. Nobody said, "Oh, we got to make this movie because we're going to make five more and an animated show and a series and comic books and everything." Like that was not the intention of making this movie. It's a little unfair to look back at it that way because they were just feeling it out. And if they thought like, "Yeah, we're just going to totally reinvent it," and yeah, here's a little nod to what the audience already knows, but even in the next movie, here's a totally different character. you know, it's I am charmed by the idea of a studio not being that cynical and not trying to create a thing that never ends and just saying, you know what, we're going to tell a new story. It's almost like every instance is its own reboot, and we just leave it to the audience to try to pick up the threads where they can. Roddy McDowell being in as many as he is, that is kind of mind blowing, but it's also the kind of thing that throws you off because you, in the back of your head, were like, well, wait, by the time we get to this last movie, wait, he's not the same. I bet he is the same, but I don't get it. Yeah, it's a
Same
challenge.
character, different name, and different
Yeah,
different
yeah.
incarnation. It's like Cloud Atlas. Planet of the Apes is
There
the
you
early
go.
Cloud
There you
Yeah.
Atlas
go.
with
All
apes.
right. Yeah.
Mark, you said you have a tome of trivia apparently, so I guess we should
Yes,
stick you on that.
it's time for a tome. Anyway, we've seen London, now see France. Pierre Francois Marie Louis Boule. Sorry, I wrote down the pronunciation. Was born in Avignon, France in 1912. He was raised Catholic, although he later became agnostic and got an engineering degree, which he would later use as a cover for his work as a secret agent for the Free French Mission in Singapore during World War II. He was captured and served 2 years hard labor in a prison camp. He later was awarded the Croix de Guerre and the Médaille de la Résistance, and described his experiences in his third novel, Le Pont de Rivière Kwai, aka Bridge on the River Kwai, which was adapted into a award-winning film by David Lean. However, his ninth novel, La Planète des Singes, was destined to have a much higher profile. Published in 1963, the book was translated and released as Planet of the Apes in the US and Monkey Planet in the UK. The main differences between the book and the eventual film, well, the Cliff Notes version of it anyway, is that it's a separate planet in the book. The story is more about the class system than it is about religion or tradition. It's revealed that humans just became lazier after apes learned to talk. The character Ulysses, who became Taylor in the film's script, wins over the apes by learning to speak their ape language. And then he, Nova, and their newborn son, Sirius, manage to steal a spacecraft that's being tested by the apes. They then fly back to Earth to find that apes are also in control of that planet. Then they leave to try to find a planet without apes. It was Boole's least favorite of his novels. Producer Arthur P. Jacobs bought the rights to adapt the novel before it was even published. He was born in Los Angeles in 1922, and after losing his parents at an early age, he studied cinema at University of Southern California and worked his way up from courier to publicist to starting his own PR firm in 1947, followed by his own production company, APJAC, or APJAC Productions, which released his first film in 1964, What a Way to Go! A film that originally had Marilyn Monroe attached, but she died. What a way to go! Anyway, Monroe was replaced by Shirley MacLaine, and the film still ended up a huge success. It earned enough money that Jacobs could finance Dr. Dolittle, a film that was generally maligned and flopped horribly. But then Jacobs had a major success with the 1968 release of Planet of the Apes, which spawned 4 sequels, and the same year he married actress Natalie Trundy, who would go on to play various characters in all 4 sequels, all of which were films that Jacobs produced. In fact, he would also serve as executive producer for a live-action Planet of the Apes TV series, which we will be watching eventually. However, he would pass away suddenly of a heart attack in 1973, which meant that he wouldn't live to see the TV series premiere the next year, and he wouldn't get to work on another project that he hoped for, an adaptation of the Frank Herbert novel Dune. Anyway, back to 1964. Jacobs convinced Fox Vice President Richard D. Zanuck to greenlight the project following the success of What a Way to Go! Rod Serling, at the time coming off working on The Twilight Zone, which ended in 1964, spent over a year writing 30 or 40 drafts of a script for the film. His script was ultimately rejected because it depicted a technologically advanced ape society that was considered too expensive to film, and previously blacklisted writer Michael Wilson was brought on to rewrite the script. Wilson also co-wrote the scripts for Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, and 1954's Salt of the Earth. You can listen to our other podcast, Films and Filth, for deeper discussions on the latter two. Bridge on the River Kwai did not make it onto the good list, unfortunately. Haven't seen it. Probably pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Among other things, it made the Ape Society more primitive, and Serling gave him full credit for the final script. According to associate producer Mort Abrams, an additional uncredited writer came in to polish the script and added most of the jokes. That writer's name is lost to time. Filming took place from May to August 1967 in California, Utah, and Arizona, and the budget was around $5.8 million. It premiered on February 8th, 1968, and went on to be a box office hit, grossing $33.3 million, which is half of 66.6. Oh, wait, that was last week. It was acclaimed by critics. As of 2024, it still sits at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes and 8.0 on IMDb. It was nominated for Best Costume Design and Best Original Score at the Oscars, and John Chambers, who designed the prosthetic makeup, won an honorary award. You might also know Chambers as the man who created Mr. Spock's ears on Star Trek. He went on to work on the other 4 Planet of the Apes movies, as well as Jaws, Phantom of the Paradise, and it's a snake movie.
I knew that movie.
As for the score, Jerry Goldsmith, who would later win an Oscar for The Omen and score 5 Star Trek films, used a ram's horn to compose the score, as well as using a 12-tone scale and other avant-garde composing techniques. Much like The Omen, it would be very hard to imagine this film without its distinctive soundtrack. In 2001, Planet of the Apes was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. That is the 1968 movie, not the 2001 movie, even though it was 2001. Charlton Heston was attached as the lead of the film, and he recommended that Jacobs hire Franklin D. Schaffner to direct the film. Schaffner was born in 1920 in Tokyo, Japan, to missionary parents. He and his mother returned to America after his father died, and later in life he enlisted in World War II, and then upon returning to civilian life, he started a career in television production, where he gained a reputation as one of the most innovative directors of the era, favoring using a moving camera when many directors favored static cameras. Planet of the Apes is one of the highest rated films on IMDb on his resume, but he would soon follow it up with Patton, which won a lot more Oscars. Later, he would direct The Boys from Brazil, featuring Gregory Peck as Joseph Mengele, as mentioned in our Omen podcast. He passed away in 1989 at the age of 69, and this is his only directorial contribution to the Planet of the Apes franchise. Anyway, back to Charlton Heston. He plays our lead, George Taylor. He was born in 1923. He got the acting bug at an early age after being born to parents in Illinois who operated a sawmill. Yet, like everyone else, he served in World War II. but he served as an aerial gunner in the Air Force, reaching the rank of staff sergeant. He cemented himself as a leading man, playing Mark Antony in 1950's Julius Caesar, and remained an A-list actor for years afterwards, turning in legendary performances in The Ten Commandments, Touch of Evil, Ben-Hur, and The Greatest Story Ever Told. But Planet of the Apes led to a leg of his career that I'm guessing appeals the most to our listeners. A few years later, after briefly appearing in Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, he starred in The Omega Man, Soylent Green, and of course, Airport 1975. He had a long career afterwards and had a brief uncredited role in Tim Burton's 2001 Planet of the Apes as Zaius. Not sure if Zaius was a doctor in that one or not. Haven't really seen it. His last credit was in 2003, and he passed away in 2008 following a bout with Alzheimer's. Linda Harrison stars as Nova. She was born in 1945 in Berlin, Maryland. She was crowned Miss Berlin at age 16, and then as her pageant career continued, she was spotted by a Fox talent scout during the Miss International finals, and her very first on-screen credit was as Dr. Zira in the Planet of the Apes test reel shot in 1966, which was based on Rod Serling's script, which was immediately followed by roles in 3 episodes of 1966 Batman series. She dated studio VP Richard D. Zanuck, who you might remember from earlier in the trivia, and they were married the year after this film's release, and stayed together until 1978 when they divorced. She and Heston have something else in common. They both desperately wanted to play the roles of the Brodies in the film Jaws a few years later. In her case, Zanuck couldn't get her the role of Ellen Brody because his boss, Sid Sheinberg, wanted his wife, Lorraine Gary, to be cast in the role. However, Heston didn't get the role of Martin Brody because director Steven Spielberg thought he was too famous and his star power would overshadow the rest of the film. Heston held a grudge against Steven Spielberg for the rest of his life. Anyway, Harrison continued to act sporadically through the 70s and 80s, and she too will be back for cameos in Beneath the Planet of the Apes and Tim Burton's 2001 remake. And along the way, she also appeared in Airport 75 and both Cocoon movies.
Everyone's in Airport 1975, right?
Unfortunately, that's the end of our Airport 75 trivia, but I just wanted to throw that in there because it's always fun. Roddy McDowell is the actor here with the strongest association with the Planet of the Apes series, and for good reason. He plays Cornelius in this film and will play him again in the 3rd film, as well as other characters in the 4th and 5th films and the live-action TV series. He was born in 1928 in London to Scottish and Irish parents. He was appearing in film by age 10, and throughout a 60-year career, he racked up an astonishing 271 on-screen credits. And one directorial credit that I just found out about, which is a 1970 folk horror movie called Tam Lin, where he directs Ava Gardner and Ian McShane, which will be added to my Halloween viewing this year. Either of you guys seen that?
Nope.
No.
I know the song. Fairport Convention has a fantastic song by that name.
Okay, I'm excited. Anyway, you can see him in the Twilight Zone episode People Are Alike All Over, which my friend Tori's grandfather wrote. Shout out to Tori and her grandfather. Episodes of Night Gallery, Super Train, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, Mork and Mindy, Fantasy Island, Quantum Leap, Batman the Animated Series, and on and on. And in one of my favorite Guilty Simian-related pleasures, Shakma, starring opposite the titular baboon. McDowell passed away from lung cancer in 1998 at the age of 70. I'm pretty sure if he hadn't, then he'd still be working today. Kim Hunter stars as Dr. Zira. She was born Janet Cole in 1922 in Detroit. She was painfully shy as a child and overcame that through diction, voice, and posture lessons from a drama teacher. She studied at the Actors Studio and made her Broadway debut as Stella in A Streetcar Named Desire in 1947, a role that she would later win an Oscar playing opposite Marlon Brando in the 1951 film adaptation. This was, of course, after David O. Selznick recommended she change her name to Kim, and an RKO secretary recommended the last name Hunter. I guess the studio could just tell you what your name was sometimes in those days. Hunter went on to have a long career in TV and film with 140 credits, including episodes of Naked City, Night Gallery, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, Mannix, Columbo. I'm missing a word there. But for the purposes of this podcast, she will reprise her role of Zira for the 2nd and 3rd Planet of the Apes movies. She passed away in 2002 from a heart attack at the age of 79. Maurice Evans plays the role of Dr. Zaius, born 1901 in Dorchester, Dorset, England. He made his stage debut in 1926 while running a cleaning and dyeing store. That's D-Y-E-I-N-G. Not like a store where you dye. I don't know how that works.
That's in Soylent Green.
Yeah, that's not really great. He soon found great success on the British stage and made his way to America to star in a number of Shakespearean plays on Broadway from the mid 30s to the mid 40s. Meanwhile, he was slowly making his way onto the silver screen, and by the 1950s, his movie career was in full swing, including, as you might guess, several Shakespearean adaptations. But you can also see him in Dial M for Murder, 1966 Batman as the Puzzler, Rosemary's Baby, The $6 Million Man, Fantasy Island, The Jerk, and The Love Boat. He passed away in 1989 at the age of 87, but before that, he'll be back in Beneath the Planet of the Apes as Dr. Zaius. And one more tidbit that I didn't find a place to put. It's one of only two G-rated movies to feature nudity, the other being The Bible in the Beginning from 1966.
All right. Okay,
Wow.
so I've got a bit of a story. It's shorter than the trivia, so I'll rock it out. A NASA crew passes the speed of light. Time dilates 2,000 years into the future and crashes on some planet. The female crew person died in hypersleep malfunction, but Taylor, Landon, and Dodge begin to travel through the wasteland that is their new home. They begin to see shrubs, then an oasis, then feral humans after said humans steal their clothing and gear. Then apes on horseback round up the humans, kill Dodge, lobotomize Landon, and toss Taylor into a medical experimentation laboratory. Taylor cannot speak for a bit as he was injured in the throat, but begins to suggest intelligence to the sympathetic chimpanzee scientists. And after an escape attempt, is able to tell those damn dirty apes to keep their hands off of him. Taylor's existence shatters the dogma of the simian society as championed by the orangutan Dr. Zaius. With the help of the scientists, Zira and Cornelius, Taylor escapes Monkey Town and they explore the wasteland for signs of human intelligence. Eventually, Dr. Zaius and the guerrilla army catches up with him, and after a bit of conflict, Zaius sends Taylor down the beach to discover the reality of this monkey planet. Okay, I found it interesting writing that just how little I actually was writing about Zira and Cornelius as they seem to be. I guess they don't have such a big part in this movie. They're just going to continue being around, so they seem.
They don't really drive the plot. They're just there to kind of help you discover uh, everybody else's role in what's happening. So it really comes down to Dr. Zaius versus Taylor, you know. But by the way, I do have a little bit of trivia to add to what Mark so generously
Please
shared
do.
here. So Roddy McDowell famously had these just lavish dinner parties with anybody and everybody from Hollywood. So it was the top talent, it was the A-list, but it was also just kind of working class Hollywood. He always just put together these very interesting assemblies of people. And apparently, like if you could score an invitation to Roddy McDowell's house to hang out, have dinner, and he was a great cook, and all of so that was the place to be. Well, it was so well known, so legendary, and people would apparently like it was a rite of passage to visit the bathroom in his home on the first floor, just kind of like right outside of where the dining room was, which he had painted in this, kind of elaborate but warm, like kind of uh, pink and like brass and wood fixtures, pictures everywhere of all of these celebrities that he had known. So it was decked out. And when he died, that bathroom was taken out and meticulously recreated at the Hollywood Museum in the Max Factor building, just up here at Hollywood and Highland. So if you ever have a chance and you're in Hollywood, you can visit Roddy McDowell's bathroom. You cannot actually use his bathroom, but you through plexiglass, you can see the extant version of Roddy McDowell's bathroom.
You can
That's
imagine yourself
amazing.
using the
But
bathroom.
also, don't let Brian Eno near it.
No,
Someone get that joke? No, okay.
I'm still
no.
thinking about it, to be perfectly honest.
He famously, there was an art exhibit, I think it was in New York, there was a toilet and he like peed in it and ran away.
That's why the plexiglass is there.
Yeah. What was it? The famous who was the French absurdist who did the urinal installation? But
Yeah.
like in 1908 or something. It was really really early, and yeah, I would not be surprised if that was the piece.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Marcel Duchamp.
Duchamp. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess we got Banksy
Remember
around for
that.
that sort of thing now.
Yeah,
Not
right.
Marcel, not Marcel Duchamp, who made Roddy McDowell's toilet. I'm sorry, that was very
Ooh,
low.
that's
That was
good.
low hanging fruit. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, you had to.
um,
Yeah.
so it was my first time watching this for a while. I think
Hmm.
maybe two modern sequels ago was the last time. Really strikes me at how uh, intricate it is. I didn't never thought about the structure of this film. It really feels like maybe 5 or 6 acts rather than three, which I think is great. It doesn't move like anything else I can think of.
Hmm.
I could shoehorn into three, I think. I guess the striking thing
It's
for me is
possible.
always just how slow the first 30 minutes are. We don't see any apes for the first 30 minutes. It's almost like what's the is it the Van Zant movie with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck or Casey Affleck just walking around in the desert for the whole movie, I think in that case. I mean, this is like the first 30 minutes. With
Like
Heston
Dead
just being
Man.
no, it's not Dead Man, but yeah, with Heston
I
being
mean, I
like
was
just
thinking of that slow
worst
movie.
person in the universe, I guess, since he's on another. Well, he's not on another
No,
planet. He thinks he's
he
on
is
another planet.
sometimes. Sometimes he's the worst person in this movie, which is also interesting. Which you get a little bit of his humanity at the beginning, right? It's kind of front loaded, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
But it is slow moving at first, and we don't see apes for half an hour. Which I guess had this been a movie not called Planet of the Apes, then that would be a great build up and a great surprise. But if you're going to see a movie called Planet of the Apes, you pretty much expect to see apes right away, or at least not waiting half an hour. But I have to give it to him, that introduction, that moment of just kinetic energy and chaos when they show up, I think that is a great payoff to the laborious, confused, slow moving action that we get. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now this is a different movie. Now it's total chaos.
Gives you that little it's like the men on the pillow when you go to a hotel too, just the opening space sequence. I mean the credits are over just like psychedelic space imagery, which you're not going to get
Yeah.
any more of that in
Yeah.
the the movie, so
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoy it while you got
Okay.
it.
I found the dialogue, and then I lost it.
Nope, you lost.
I leave the century with no regrets, but one more thing, if anybody's listening, that is nothing scientific, it's purely personal. Seen from out here, everything seems different. Time bends, space is boundless. It squashes a man's ego. I feel lonely.
And then he takes
So,
it out on his crewmates for 30
Yeah.
well,
minutes.
yeah, then immediately he's like, haha, what did you want to live? Do you want to live on Earth? Ha 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 ha. Earth
Right.
is gone now. That's
Great
yeah.
maniacal laughing
But
from your hero though.
But isn't he like a great Rod Serling, what'd you call it, anti-hero?
Yeah,
I
no, the
mean,
first 30 minutes, episodes of the Twilight Zone, definitely feel like this.
Yeah.
Not Third from the Sun. I mean, the first 30 minutes of this is almost exactly the same as one of the season two Twilight Zone episodes, I believe. Just
I have to say that, every time I watch this movie, I feel like I'm focused in on a different idea being presented, and a lot of that stuff is just very obvious, and you can follow the sort of racial metaphor, you can follow the religious ideas and commentary being batted around here, the social order and structure, and the use of the military. Like all of these ideas are jam packed in this movie, and this most recent time, I found myself more thinking about the character of Taylor and what his arc is and what we're actually supposed to get out of it. Because he starts off as kind of an asshole. I mean, he is a misanthrope. He's getting out of Earth because Earth sucks, and he does not care for his fellow man whatsoever. But then he gets to this future Earth, as he is to find out, where everything is haywire, where he is prey, he is the bottom of the social order. He should be dead by all accounts. So we, as fellow humans watching the movie, should feel a bit of sympathy for him. We want to side with him. But even by the time we get to the end of this, I'm like, you know what? Everything you said about humanity was right. Everybody around you was terrible. You were right to get out of there. But guess what? Your life is now immeasurably worse. So I don't know that Taylor necessarily grows through any of this. He's just sort of trying to make a case for humanity, but then that argument doesn't really stand up because, yeah, humanity destroyed everything. So I'm trying to follow him specifically, and less the big ideas in the movie, and just understand this is a character study. I'm not really sure that I'm not really sure that he grows. And even though he earns his freedom, it's like, well, freedom from what? You're just going to be wandering the desolate hellscape of post-nuclear Earth with your very hot mute girlfriend now. Yeah.
Yeah, I assume both of you guys knew about how something else I left out of the trivia is that there were a lot of scenes filmed where Nova was supposed to be pregnant, and they basically axed that because I think it was the director was like, this is not good because she doesn't have agency. She's basically, yeah, it was bad
Yeah.
considered bad optics in the 60s. So,
Yeah.
which I agree with. That would have
Yeah.
been a bad idea.
Yeah, I guess things I stuck out to me this time. One, when Zero and Cornelius comes in, well, I haven't seen you guys for weeks. And I'm like, oh, I guess I never realized just how much time this movie takes place over. Although his beard should have been bigger in that case. Maybe that's why I didn't get thrown off. And then the little strain, I guess that's you were like, every time you watch it, something sticks out. For me this time, I guess it was you know, archaeological discoveries that don't jibe with the status quo. We get that
Yeah.
with what Göbekli Tepe and Turkey, because that's like really not supposed to be there, according to what history books have been saying for years. And in Egypt, sometimes we find things that don't really fit the whole Egyptology story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that's like a national pastime in Egypt. That's like one of their strongest institutions. So it's really hard to have anyone reconsider the status quo of like ancient Egyptian history as well. And that's what we're getting here. All the evidence is right there. Dr. Zayas knows about it all. Uh,
Yeah. And
I
to
mean,
his credit, as a man of science, Dr. Zayas is at the ready with some alternative explanations. He's got
Yeah.
he's got some candidate theories as
well, he's like
to
if the Pope was also, like the dean
yeah.
at MIT, right?
Yeah. Well, and that ultimately, I mean, to me, is the most interesting thing in this movie, is that very ugly intersection of scientific inquiry against religious dogma. And this really makes a case that those are not compatible whatsoever, because ultimately one has got to give up a little bit of its ground for the other to actually survive.
I mean, we get the other sides represented with Zaius in the middle because Zira and Cornelius, they don't care about the religion, they're looking at the science. And then
Yeah.
we get the
Yeah.
the feller that was in a Twilight Zone or two that's in the ape church, preaching the dogma that's fully on the religion side. He probably doesn't
Yeah.
care about science at all. So
Yeah.
Well, it really stuck out to me this viewing how much Cornelius is like, I'm in line for a promotion. I don't want to get wrapped up in this stuff. Like, can we not? Can we just go back to working? It's really
Right.
interesting how he's just sort of like, I don't want any part of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's and Zero is more kind of like, no, we have to follow this whole thing, even though obviously they don't know what they're getting into. Like they have no idea.
Yeah.
But then again, neither does Taylor.
Very true.
no, the only person here that's really standing on stable ground probably is Zaius, who can do pretty much what he wants. And, he gets held hostage for a few minutes, but otherwise he's pretty much always in control.
His performance towards the end is like, I gained a new appreciation for that too, because he's just so like, his eyes are kind of like darting around. He's like kind of like almost mafia.
But he
He's like,
does,
yeah, you can't do anything to me.
but he does get also to a point where, okay, I actually do have to start like interacting with these people a little bit about the information we're, looking at this moment, which isn't,
Yeah.
movies can't always make that. Sometimes they just have to twirl the mustache on the villain, right? Which
Sure.
Zaius mostly is, but there's a little bit of a legit logical thought going on in his head, especially at the end.
I feel like
Well,
he
I mean,
has the look.
every. Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah. No,
I was
everything that Zaius knows is correct, And he's doing this out of self-preservation and preservation of his entire culture because he knows absolutely what the humans did, and or at least enough of the story that he's put together. So his knee-jerk reaction to protect that and realize, like, oh, wait a minute, if there is science unfettered, if we allow in these outside ideas, we will probably get wrecked the same way that the humans got wrecked. So he's not wrong. He's just sort of taking that to an extreme. Like he's not moderating his passions enough to allow in outside information.
He has the look of like this isn't the first time someone's held a gun to him and put it up against a wall.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
He's like knows what needs to happen for the sausage to get made.
Yeah.
Like maybe he's,
Well, we
like,
don't get
if
much
you find
into
any or as you find any dictator and you find a guy like Dr. Zaius will be somewhere up towards the top of his organization.
Oh yeah.
But the
Interesting.
orangutans really are kind of in the middle because as we learn, not so much in this movie, but the next one really pushes that, oh, the gorillas have the power, but they're dumb, they're the military. So, like we get the gorilla army backing Zaius in this, but they might actually kind of be watching Zaius as well. That might be one of the reasons they're with them, Like
Right.
they actually hold the power. They're the actual dictatorship, and Zaius is kind of a figurehead. I have a feeling like maybe he's other orangutans don't quite hold his status. And again, later movies are going to actually push those buttons a little more, so I'm coming in informed by those as well. But
yeah, I think the book as well. I think the book has more class struggle stuff.
That
I
might
want
be
to
the
read
case.
it.
I did
I
the
really
same
do wanna
thing
read
where
this.
after I'd seen this movie 100 times, I read it in high school, right? Because why not? But
Okay.
that has been a while, so I have might want to give that another read.
Yeah.
I probably read that about the time the Burton film was coming out. Well, actually, I'm making it university, but yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I was interested. Like you said, the Serling script was completely thrown out. Whereas
No, it wasn't completely thrown out.
Okay, because there's definitely
was
some bits of
rewritten.
dialogue. Yeah, there's bits of dialogue. I'm like that's got to be Serling dialogue
Yeah.
there, which is has nothing to do with the setting or the time, so it would make sense. And then that first 30 minutes just such a Twilight Zone vibe. I was like, it's got to be a little bit. So
If I'm not mistaken, he credited the other writer with kind of lightening it up because his original take was too dark, too heavy.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a case of, Rod Serling just being a nice guy and a decent person. He's like this guy who's been blacklisted recently.
Yeah.
I definitely could see him be like, yeah, you take the credit. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a very Twilight Zone script. It always has been. It was like one of those things. Like I do remember finding that out. Be like, oh, of course, yes,
Right.
Oh,
even though twist in the original book, pretty good. I guess Tim Burton more took that one.
Well, yeah, but he took it to the point of incoherence. I do remember.
Yeah.
Like, didn't they
That's what
have?
I've heard.
Didn't they have something in the DVD packaging or something for the 2001 Planet Apes that showed you the timeline because it didn't make any damn sense unless someone showed you a picture of it?
Yeah, I think you're
That's
right.
terrible.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to include a diagram to explain your movie, which this one doesn't need. I mean, I understood this one
Not
fine
at
when I was
all.
7 years old,
Yeah.
Because there's some things like 2001, and I don't know why I was into watching slowly paced sci-fi as a kid, but I watched this, the motion picture 2001, just a ton. I'm like, why was I watching those in elementary school so much? That seems weird, but yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I guess I had the attention span for it. This is the fastest of that group of movies,
I mean, it's got so much, right? It's got apes running around like throwing nets and shooting and fighting and courtroom drama.
Yeah.
I love the courtroom drama. I'm not
too,
even saying
yeah.
that ironically. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's great. No, I guess like watching this and the second one Beneath so many times as a kid, I think I actually I would never say that that's a better movie than this one as far as like film stuff, but I kind of like Beneath better. Just as far as because it's got so much weird stuff to show me, like
It is intensely more weird.
Yeah.
I like there are things in it that I love, but I don't know. I did a little bit of scanning of it just to see a couple of things, And you can tell when you're looking at it that it's not as artfully directed as this, and that does
Yeah.
count for a lot.
No, not at
Like
all. That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what I'm
this
getting
dude,
at. Yeah.
this guy was using handheld cameras for this. Like in 1968, he was
Yeah.
using handheld
Yeah.
cameras to film this stuff. It's wild how
And obviously
forward.
beneath has the this has the star power going for it where James Franciscus, did I get his name right?
Yeah.
He's okay as a
He's
genre
good,
guy,
but
but
he's Charlton Heston from from Wish.com.
Yep.
He's
Uh-huh.
not quite Charlton Heston. Another element here that I think really, really works, and you mentioned in your trivia, is the Jerry Goldsmith score, because I remember being at some event about Goldsmith and describing this score as modernist in the respect that it's, not based on the typical melodic themes that you would have gotten in movies up to this point, but it's just using sound, not unlike, say, Forbidden Planet did, just by creating tones to play during the movie. But it really works because it informs like kind of how you think about the apes having their own technologies, their own culture that is developed outside of what we know as humans. I think that plays a big, big part in making this movie feel the way that it does.
yeah, I play in orchestras, so when I hear most soundtrack music, I can kind of visualize what's going on. I can imagine the
Yeah,
orchestra spread
yeah,
out, who's doing what. This one, I'm like, I don't even know who's on stage for this. It's so weird and so many like found sounds and odd percussion and stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know how many
I mean,
people are playing this score.
it
That's
reminds me
very
of the
true. Yeah.
Rites of Spring, which is like, what do you think of when you think of the Rites of Spring? You
The
think of
Rites
a
of
bunch
Spring
of
uses
people
a
dancing
conventional
around,
orchestra. Yeah, that
but it's
uses a
still,
conventional
it
orchestra that I
feels,
can still see where the parts fit
yeah.
in, you know?
Just a gut reaction to it is I'm like, yeah, I can imagine people rioting during this, which is perfect for this film.
I don't think people rioted after his film though, so it wasn't one of those.
No, but I mean, they rioted in the film,
They
sort of.
rioted into the theaters,
In
making
the
it a
film,
success.
inside the film.
Into
There
the
you go.
So,
theaters, a riot.
not to jump too far ahead, because there's still more to talk about, but we're not doing the modern films for this podcast. That's a spoiler. What do you guys think after rewatching this about the idea that disease killed all the humans based on the reboot, whatever you call it, reboot
Um,
series? Now I seeing it today, or yesterday, I was kind of like, now I kind of hate that. Actually, it's so much more effective if humans all nuked each other.
it was done pretty well in Rise. I mean, like, just it worked well, and after that, it
Yeah.
probably doesn't. Well, I guess Dawn. It
Well,
yeah, it does change
spoilers.
what
They
happens in those movies, I guess.
they still they're 4 movies into that, which I did like the fourth movie, but they just will not let go of intelligent humans.
Right. I actually
Which
haven't seen the
yeah.
most recent one yet, so
spoilers.
I mean,
Sorry.
I don't care.
I apologize for spoiling it.
Oh, that's not really a spoiler, I think.
It is
But,
though.
okay, sure.
Anyway, sorry. It is.
No, I think you have to stick with the nuclear plot as yeah, I think that's almost essential to this working the way that it does. I thought uh, the biological viral that it just felt like the filmmakers trying to put their own stamp on the story. I think that this is part of what makes it tick. Not that you have to go so far as beneath. You don't have to have the cult of the bomb, like necessarily. If we just take Planet of the Apes on its own for its own merits, I think that works to tell this story. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I guess it's
something
just
Yeah.
the Cold
sudden.
War ends about 1990, 1991, right? After that, we
Mhm.
get stuff like Outbreak, Contagion, the 2020 pandemic. So,
Yeah.
our apocalyptic minds, I guess, are just more focused on that now, and that's why it comes through in the newer movies.
Yeah.
Like
Well, they
and-
they
and
also
look,
want
you-
to explain everything, right? They want to explain why humans lose
Yeah.
dominance. They want to explain why the apes are smart. It's just all one nice, tidy package where it's like, I think they could have pulled off like the book. They could have just done a really like a weird montage where people slowly don't talk anymore. Like Idiocracy or something like that. And
Yeah,
that could have
but
worked, but still.
But even
yeah,
then,
the
I think we're all perfectly good at filling in the dots or filling in the gaps where they need to be filled in. It's
Yeah.
those movies now that feel like they have to explain every last thing, or else, oh my God, the audience won't get it. That's a mistake. You know, obviously you don't want to leave plot holes, but I think this original it does a perfectly fine job of letting you imagine, oh yeah, humans are going to get to a point where they will destroy themselves. That is exactly the thing that Dr. Zaius is afraid of for his society. That you know, same problem, different millennia.
And he's ultimately correct, unfortunately.
Yes, yes,
As we
exactly.
will see in the next movie.
I hate him for it, but yeah.
I guess the thing that bugs me more about, not bugs me, but makes me unable to put this in the same basket as the newer movies is just, you know, the new movies have the amazing mocap CGI apes, but if I'm in the mood for Planet of the Apes, I kind of want a dumb monkey suit, you know?
Well, it's
So
not even dumb if you think about it from
a
the
great monkey
perspective
suit.
of when when if you think of it from the
they're dumb by the
perspective
fifth
of
movie.
when apes evolved for however many I think it's 3,000 years. That seems like a really short time for this, but still,
it is. Yeah,
There's some
I think in the
Eventually-
book, it's a lot longer. Yeah.
eventually apes that evolved to walk upright, you know, and rely on those like muscles like humans do, would eventually walk like this. Would have human bodies. They would probably not continue to. I mean, as much fun it is to see a CGI like, you know, ape climbing trees and grabbing things with their little monkey hands on their for feet, etc. That's very fun to watch a gorilla just smash a guy, but it probably would work out like this. There probably would be humanoids.
And I don't know if it's just because this is the one that I grew up watching, but you know, when I see Maurice Evans or Roddy McDowall or Kim Hunter, I mean, I'm just seeing the character, and I don't see the makeup. Now, fast forward a bit, and you can tell. Well, even in this one, some of the background, but as the budgets get cut for the sequels, you can tell where they're wearing masks and not proper makeup, except on our very few principles. And yeah, it does look cheap. And in that case, I'd probably rather see CG. But the best shots of this with the primary characters, I just the makeup and again that analog feel doesn't bother me at all. And I'm kind of like you. I imagined that this evolutionary track that we're following allowed these apes to change a bit. They're standing a little more upright. Their body structure has changed just a little bit to adapt.
Yeah, and I'm sure a part of not using the bomb in the 2011 movie is that someone was just, well, if we haven't had a nuclear war yet, then we probably just won't at this point. Nuclear war is so 20th century, we're just gonna like take that and like toss it aside, which is ignoring how incredibly interesting it would be. It's like everybody thinks everything's fine. Oh wait, there is still like 800 nukes, which there are. If you're listening to this now and you're alive, there's still a bunch of nukes somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
some of them in disrepair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows where they are? Destabilization of countries, and you know, things just end up wherever. Think about it like when you move somewhere and you don't know where you put your stuff. Like that could happen to nukes. Anyway, I hope I'm wrong. Anyway.
No, this is not time enough podcast, but we did start with the Serling script, and I'm actually going to throw out my questions on this one. The first one, I'm just going to have to say Twilight Zone because I can't think of a good proxy other than the Ape Zone, but that's clear that there's an Ape Zone. So let's call it the Twilight Zone and figure out who went on a journey through some kind of Twilight Zone in this movie.
I mean, our astronauts did.
Yeah, it's a pretty obvious answer, I think. But I don't know. You could talk about Zero and Cornelius kind of being that space too, because they're being, you know, Zaius knows everything. If he's from whatever weirdness there is, whereas Zero and Cornelius are coming into contact with this new crazy information and experiencing a talking human, you know?
Yeah. But Zaius, by the same token, though, I mean, he knows this stuff intellectually. But this is his Twilight Zone moment to be faced with his fear, to be faced with the idea that, oh, no, this is now a reality that is coming back to bite you in your ape ass. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a man with a gun. Nobody wants to have to. I don't want to have to deal with a man from 3,000 years ago who has a gun. Absolutely not. I don't even know what that
right,
means.
right,
Or even a large
right.
club, really, if he's in the same room
Yeah.
with you.
And no, I don't want a Roman gladiator to show up and do something that's more recent, but still.
So I do want to put the deserve question, I guess, on the astronauts because that makes the most sense. Do the astronauts deserve this? Something malfunctioned horribly on the ship, right? So that's maybe Heston forgot to press a button. I don't know.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean that's another like, look, I am ill-equipped to give this movie the proper kind of feminist examination that it really needs, but yeah, there are problems that we can discuss with Nova, how that character is treated for sure, but then you have your one human speaking, presumably speaking role astronaut who we kill before we even start the story. And I wondered, like, okay, how long was this? I forget exactly how long this original mission was planned for. And you got three dudes and one woman. And is the intention that this is a short trip? Because if it's a short trip, fine. If it's not a short trip, um, I feel for that. Maybe death is the escape that she needed from what her potential future would be. But yeah, this is not particularly kind or forward thinking for the women in it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I get
like we
Kim
bring up
Hunter
in the
gets a nice meaty role, but she also gets
yeah.
monkey makeup tossed on her face. So
Well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a story I love, which is that she went up to Charlton Heston at the premiere and said, "How are you doing?" And he didn't know who she was because the makeup was so good and he'd only seen her in the makeup. He had no
Sure.
idea what she looked like.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, like we've gone into on Twilight Zone episodes that someone always has to die in the cryostasis. Like
Yeah.
everything
well,
says
all
this always.
sci-fi,
Yeah.
really. Give me any
If there's
sci-fi
more than
where
one
someone doesn't
person,
die in
yes.
cryostasis.
But yeah, it is. They fridge the one woman astronaut, and
Yep. Yep.
even though Taylor doesn't seem to care
I
about
don't think
anything,
anyone died
really.
in cryostasis in Passengers, but that movie has other problems.
I mean, isn't it sort of like they're going to die before they get to?
Well, I mean, they live their life,
I
but
didn't
yeah,
see it.
there's
I didn't see
issues with
it.
that movie. So I guess
Not gonna see it.
here's where I'm going to
Anyway.
put blame on the astronauts. Two people go skinny dipping. One person watches their stuff. They're on an alien planet. They don't know anything. Just have one person on guard. He can wait
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Good plan. Good plan. Yeah.
When they are going around, I mean, Taylor is laughing and ha ha ha. We have 72 hours worth of food.
And we're in a desert that
We
may have no end.
They're in a desert. They have 72 hours worth of food. I mean, sure, there's probably a lot more food on the ship that they lost, which for some reason
Sure.
just could not survive being in a lake
Yeah.
and on Earth. It's not like alien water or like sulfur or anything. It's just an Earth body of water.
Very
So-
much so. Yeah.
Somebody did not plan this mission very well. You know what I mean? Um. Anyway, they deserve it. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
much.
call.
Pretty much. Agreed.
Sorry, I'm just scanning through Twilight Zones because I have to say the name of the episode that really does parallel the first 30 minutes of this, which maybe is a season 3 episode.
I do want to bring up because this is in your wheelhouse, John, and I actually
Mhm.
checked, and you guys have talked about it. Because
Mhm.
I remember listening, Distant Origin, the Voyager episode, where it's like they're dinosaurs that
Oh,
spun off
yeah.
from humans.
Yeah. That
So
is
much like
absolutely
this.
a Planet of the Apes parallel for sure. Yeah, they have to keep the integrity of their sacred scrolls.
Yeah, you go to Dinosaur Court. That was
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah, of course,
Dinosaur Court, which I would definitely watch.
Oh.
That is a show I'd for sure watch.
the early 90s
And-
must have had something like that. We had dinosaurs, we had the fish police, we had cop rock.
Uh-huh.
That would have made perfect sense in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also now I can tell you, the thing I've told Matt, which is that when I was watching that episode, I was at first convinced that it was descendants of the Threshold baby lizards.
Yeah. Right.
I was like, oh man, they're gonna pay this off. No, they didn't. They did not want to go back to that. But
No.
So we'll get the new question rolling here then, unless anyone wanted to say anything more about people deserving things or not deserving things.
well, I mean, it's Taylor is I don't know. His character hasn't aged super well, I guess. He is a,
Yeah.
60s movie mass machismo protagonist guy who's like, I need a gun. I'm not gonna go out of here without a gun. Yeah, it hasn't aged super well, but I mean, damn, does he get a comeuppance, right? I mean, he doesn't
Yeah.
he doesn't do
What,
anything like that's like outright cruel or anything.
whatever is coming to him, he deserves it. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. I shot an arrow into the air as the Twilight Zone that's been driving
Oh,
me
yeah.
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
That
They,
is
they, yeah, they're out. They're in Nevada. They're in the desert. Yeah.
right, but instead of finding the oasis as they do in this movie, spoiler for that episode, they all basically
Yeah.
die before the last rid shows them its Earth. So they kind of miss
Right.
that bit of information there.
Right.
So at
Yeah.
least testing gets to figure that out. Yeah, those other two
Yeah.
astronauts definitely got the raw end. Well, all three of the other
I
astronauts
mean,
got very raw ends of the deal there with
the Rip Van
lobotomy.
Winkle caper, right? Where it's like gold is useless and they're all dead.
Yeah, I mean that's a different. That's another stuck in the desert one. Yeah, so kind of
Yeah.
similarly
Right.
And
vibe.
Right.
cryostasis, and somebody dies in cryostasis, and Rod Serling wrote it. So
Yeah.
the rest of my
There you go.
case.
There you go.
So the new question that we're going to go for on podcast 1999, of course, we've been doing existential dread, sci-fi fun. That doesn't
Mhm.
make much sense here. I mean, this has lots of existential dread and sci-fi fun, so I guess we could do it. But
I'd say top.
All
Where
of
the
it.
top score is all of the above.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
100 for both. But
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
since we're with the apes now, we're going to give this 0 to 7 bananas. You can decide what that means. I guess I'll start then, since I'm making a super vague question. I'm going to give this 5 bananas. It starts the franchise. It has the best looking apes from all of the movies because the budgets go down, but
Mhm.
it does not have the whackness that Beneath or Conquest or Battle really are going to give us in the near future. So I feel like I need to save a couple bananas for Caesar, you know?
I'm actually going to give it 7 bananas. I think that this has so much in it that I'm like I'm not going to say that I necessarily am requiring myself to give this the peak amount of bananas just because it's the peak of the franchise,
It's the
but
titular
I am
movie.
doing that. It is a crazy movie. It also has a lot in it. So I'm going to give it 7 bananas.
Yeah. Also, it
Uh,
loses my own banana for me because we don't see apes for the first 30 minutes. So you don't have any
okay.
bananas in
Okay.
the desert. But no, I
But
accept your
there's
score, of course. I'm just giving you
yeah.
mine in an
Yeah.
Okay.
explanation.
Mhm.
I would give it 7 bananas. I mean, this will go down in time as just one of my all-time favorite science fiction movies. And I also think that it is kind of the pinnacle of when you try to explain to somebody like, no, science fiction isn't just spaceships and laser guns and things that explode. There are great deep thoughts and deep issues being worked out in science fiction. See Planet of the Apes, because we say that about Star Trek, and Star Trek, its batting average is maybe about 70%, given episodes. There's a lot of episodes that just don't do that, but everybody says, no, I love Star Trek. It's so thoughtful and deep and heady, and like, okay, sometimes, maybe even most of the time. But this one movie tackles so much and so brilliantly. And like I said at the beginning, I could watch this and just purely focus on one of the ideas being hashed out. Watch it again the next day and just get absorbed by one of the other heavy, deep ideas that it's trying to hash out. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So, just as a movie that is topical and thoughtful and elevates the whole genre of science fiction to what it should be, that's a 7 banana movie. That's an 8 out of 7 banana movies. But,
Yeah.
but, we are looking at this in 2024. And I think you got to deduct a little bit because of things that just don't hold up, things that just don't age well. And chief among them is Taylor as a character. Still have some questions about him, his motivations, what he actually learns. I don't think he's a better person by the end of this at all. And the way that we treat some of the women characters in this movie. Like I said, Zira is great. She's awesome. I want to hang out with Zira. But that's pretty much the shining example of a female character in this movie. So there are some things that I have to deduct a little bit of a banana for, but that's okay. I got 6.5 bananas still, and that's a tasty meal right there.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't even mention Lucius, who's like a whole other
He's
like
so
layer.
great.
He is
He's
really great.
great.
He's a
Yeah.
great whole like don't trust. I put in my notes, don't trust anybody over 30, and then
Yes.
Taylor
Again,
said
yeah.
it to him.
We'll push
like,
that
yes.
button a little harder in the next movie as well. So,
But
This is. Go ahead, Mark.
oh, speaking of changing everything, did you guys realize that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out the same day in the United States as
Whoa.
this? I didn't
Wow.
know that.
Wow.
how many monkeys
Okay.
on screen.
So it's like everything. Yeah, so many monkeys that weekend. It was like everything changed just that quickly.
Okay, so that day, that release date gets all 7 bananas for sure. Just that day of
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Right. If you go back in time, that's the day. That's Banana Day.
April 3rd,
Now, I was going to
19.
say that for this movie, this is one of the rare movies that is now over 50 years old where you can go, you know what? In context, if you study the history of that time in American, but global history as well, you can very easily understand what influences the ideas being hashed out and the point of view of the filmmakers and what they're trying to get their audience kind of engaged in by watching this movie. In 2024, this is also a movie that you can watch and just unironically go like, oh yeah, I get it because these things are relevant now too. Like there's no disconnect at all. And there are some movies from that time or, just before or just after where you can go like, oh, okay, well, I can appreciate this for the time that it was made. I can appreciate this for the things that were of concern to the filmmakers and writers back then. But it is the rare movie that on all levels can also be relevant topically now as it was back then. So there's I'm going to give it another quarter banana just for that.
All right, good banana.
Yeah.
I wish it was less relevant, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
I really
Right.
do.
For real. Mm-hmm.
Because 2001, arguably less relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're
Exactly.
No, I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Pan Am is gone, sadly.
Yes.
Yeah. See, tragically. Yeah.
I guess we'll start wrapping up today. So, John, I guess this is early November for people listening. If you want to rap about what's going on over at the Mission Log.
Oh my gosh. So if you haven't checked it out, then on Mission Log, as this episode comes out, you will have probably heard Jessie Earl, special guest Jessie Gender, as she is known on YouTube, joining me to talk about relativity. We had a lot of fun, and I'm very, very, very happy to say that Norman Lau was able to come back for 2 episodes with me. So we covered oh wait, that's the 2-parter that we just did, Equinox and Equinox Part 2. So Norman and I did those, so it was very nice to hear Norm's voice. We had a great conversation about those episodes, so those should be out as this episode drops.
That's awesome.
Alrighty. We are into a new franchise here, but it is still Podcast 1999. That is what we are on socials. And we do a lot of podcasting over at Patreon at Podcastius. Mark, you mentioned Films and Filth, where we talk about what are supposed to be really great and really bad movies, according to IMDb users. I mentioned the Twilight Zone. That's Time Enough Podcast. You guys are both regularly there as well. So that's going on. And then there's some gamer stuff like Luke Loves Pokemon and Hyrule Field Report. And not the Monster Mash. See, it's Halloween time. All I can think of now is the Monster Mash. Stuck in my head,
doesn't?
man.
Yeah.
The Monster Mash is a song about the song called The Monster Mash, but you've never heard the song.
Is it the
Monster
dance,
Mash.
though? Is the Monster
Yes!
Mash just the dance? Could it just be the dance?
Oh.
You can actually listen to there's a whole album that's on, and it's just every song is like another song where
Oh,
it's
it's
like
terrible.
Dracula at the pool. It's just,
Yeah, no, I know.
everything is just another song where the guys
It's like
and also
if you,
a
it's
guy
just they're missing they're missing the lyrical hit of the Monster Mash itself. It's like, let's dumb down the rest of the songs. Now we're
Oh,
just
God.
saying the names of monsters.
also
and
but
then 3 years
also
later, the
somebody
monsters
stole it.
swim.
somebody stole the song, like somebody
Yeah, from
re-recorded the
Monsters.
song. No, another guy recorded Monster
Oh.
Mash, so the original guy had to make the album called The Original Monster Mash. Because somebody
Really?
else, it's so weird.
Oh
It's
my
like
God, I didn't know that
Monster
part of it.
Mash.
I
Yeah,
Jeez.
there's a
also
knockoff
Yeah.
Monster Mash. I listened to it and it was fine.
I also saw a picture of the guy who did the original one. Apparently the Beach Boys backed him up early in their career, and there's a shot of him doing the Monster Mash with like Brian Wilson, like the Pendleton, the really early Pendleton plaid shirts they'd wear,
Yeah.
backing him up for the
Okay.
Monster Mash. So, and then it
Oh
was
my
in their live
God.
set for years too. So yeah,
Incredible.
Yeah, you
Incredible.
listen to songs like Monster Minuet, Transylvania Twist, Me and My Mummy, Monster
Mhm.
Motion, Monster Mash Party. That's a different song, apparently.
I think it's just
Oh
an
my
instrumental of the
God.
Monster Mash, basically, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
yeah, we need an
Um,
ape mash then. I guess that's what we need. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, John, for joining our trip back 3,000 years to the same place.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much,
Forwards.
guys. What a fun movie. I love talking about this one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking for my recording button because my notifications are covering it. There we go. Okay.